In today's episode, we're going to look at some recent research on the 4% rule, discuss what that is, and then kind of discuss whether that's a smart move for you in your retirement or whether you should look at some other options. Let's roll.
Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with your host, certified financial fiduciary, Tim Wood. Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author of Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success, member of the exclusive Ed Slott Master Elite IRA Advisor Group, and founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim uses an education-first approach with clients nationwide to ensure they understand their choices in planning their own safe money retirement. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and asset protection and growth strategies. And now, from the Safe Money Retirement Studio in Johnson City, Tennessee, your host, Tim Wood.
Most of you know that for years, 4% has been the agreed upon amount that people should take out of their retirement accounts in order to make sure they have enough income to last the rest of their life. Well, Morningstar just did some research on this last year, and I've got an article here, and we are going to go through it and discuss what some of these different numbers are. For those of you that don't know, the 4% rule actually came from a financial planner named William Bengen back in 1994, and it first appeared in the Journal of Financial Planning. So we're going to discuss what that is and what might be a better option for you as we go forward. First, if you don't already have a copy of my book, Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success, I strongly recommend you get one. There's no obligation. There's no price. We will send you one absolutely free because it's going to allow you to understand what you can really do in your retirement to make sure you've got enough income, to make sure you don't lose money in a market crash, to make sure you're prepared for long-term care, to make sure you're ready to leave a legacy. Whatever it is that's important to you, you can learn what to do about it from this book. We'll send you a copy absolutely free. Just log on to our website, safemoneyretirement.com. You can get your free copy right there, or you can call us anytime, 833-413-SAFE. That's 833-413-7233. Okay, so what we're going to look at is this is actually an article from Morningstar, was published within the last 2 weeks, the very last week of December. And the article is actually called Forget the 4% Rule. Consider this new magic number for retirement withdrawals instead. So, of course, that got my interest because that's something that we discuss quite often. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it talks about the time-honored 4% rule suggests that a retiree should be able to withdraw 4% of their savings and investments in their first year of retirement, and then adjust that based on what happens with inflation. And essentially this should allow you to make it through the rest of your retirement without running out of money. That's the theory. And basically that would mean someone with $1 million in savings would be able to withdraw $40,000, and then inflation adjusts that $40,000 every single year, and that's how much you can withdraw. Okay. But this study that they just did says in some years that just doesn't add up. For example, this last year, it would have to have been 3.7. So that means you would add on $1 million, you would have only got 37. And that gives and here's the big thing. At the end of all this, even if you just took 3.7%, that gives you a 90% probability of having some money at the end of a 30-year retirement. 90% possibility. Now here's the problem. What happens if you live 35 years? What happens if you're in the 10% that doesn't even make it to the 30 years? That's not good enough for me. I want to know that I've got enough income for the rest of my life no matter what. I don't want to hope that the market does good enough to overcome any possible market downturns. I want to hope that the sequence of returns risk doesn't get me. In other words, if the market goes down sharply, especially right after you retire, much more detrimental than if it goes down sharply 10 or 15 years after you retire. I don't want to leave that to risk. So anyway, that's what it's talking about. Last year, actually, they figured in 2022, the withdrawal rate was 3.8%, and in 2021, it was only 3.3% because inflation was so high. So here's the question. Do you want to withdraw an amount that goes up and down every single year? You don't know exactly how much you're going to get or if it's going to be enough, and you just have to hope it's going to be enough. Number two, you have to hope it's going to be there. I mean, 90% chance of 30 years, that's great. That sounds like pretty good odds, but those odds aren't good enough to me. That's why we do guaranteed income plans that you can't ever outlive and your spouse can't ever outlive, so you don't ever have to worry about being in that 10%. Or if you live longer than 30 years with medical advancements and with what's coming over the next couple of decades, they're saying we could easily be living into our 100s and, into like the 1-teens, 120s, that kind of a thing. That they say that's really coming. So what happens if you've only planned for 30 years and you live to 110? What are you going to do with those last 15, 20 years? You're going to go live with your son-in-law that you can't stand? You need to make sure that you've got a plan for these things. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. The second thing that I want to talk about other than that is, why would you want to get into a plan that, again, you're hoping you've got enough and that you're doing at the very, very, very best, you're doing 4% a year is all you can withdraw. That's on the very best years. Or you could get into a plan from a top-rated life insurance company. In some cases, it's been around for over 100 years, and they're going to pay you a guaranteed amount, and it's always more than 4%. Now, it's based on where you live. It's based on what your age is when you start. There's several factors, but it's always more than 4%. In most cases, it's more than 5%, and in some cases, it's more than 6%. And I've seen some people that start it way late in life, and it's actually over 7% that they pay you, guaranteed. So why would you want to take 3 to 4% and hope that you've got enough to last the rest of your life when you could not worry about it anymore, put it in a product that's going to have some growth in the principal when the market's up, never any losses when the market's down. But the important part is that it would pay you and your spouse guaranteed income that you can't outlive. No matter how long you live, you can never outlive it. And that's going to be significantly higher than what you could pay yourself. I mean, 4% on $1 million, we just discussed it's $40,000. If you got 6%, that's $60,000. That's a big difference. That's $20,000 a year, $1,500 a month. That's a big difference. That's a big difference in lifestyle. So what you need to really consider is longevity, because that's what we're talking about is longevity. What do you want to do for your longevity? Do you want to risk it and, say, well, I hope that I can make it, and if I do this and I, do 4% and then inflation adjust it, I should make it for 30 years, hopefully, and then, have a little bit of money left, hopefully? Or would you rather know for sure that you're going to have enough money no matter how long you live, that it's going to keep paying, and that you and your spouse are taken care of for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live? This is what we do for our clients. We help them basically understand that retirement is about income and help them get the income that they need to enjoy their retirement. On the golf course, one day you can be hitting them perfectly. The next day, in the water back there behind me. Retirement can be a lot like that with the stock market. You think you're doing great, you're having great gains, then all of a sudden there's those losses that come in. And we're talking about what you have saved your entire life for. Well, what if I told you there was a way to get past that? What if I told you there was a way to protect everything that you've saved over the last 30, 40, 50 years and never have to worry about market losses again? What if I told you there was a way for you and your spouse to get an income you cannot outlive? What if I told you there were some long-term care benefits built into these products? Well, I can show you how they work, and you can see for yourself in the free book you can get below, Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. I wrote this for you so you can understand what you can really do to protect your retirement. My dad lost over 75% of his retirement in the first 4 years he was retired. I do not want that to happen to you. Download this free resource and we'll be in touch. In today's case file, we are going to look at Jim and Chloe. They were absolutely a fantastic couple, loved them so much. They basically came in right before they decided they were going to retire. So most of the retirement was actually coming from Jim. He was the one that had most of the money. Chloe took care of the kids and then, had some kind of part-time side hustle, so to speak. But most of it was coming from Jim. Jim had a large pension, and he also had a significant amount in a 401k. So we had a couple of things we were looking at for them. Number one, we wanted to check and see, was that pension that he had the best thing for him to do? Well, most pensions, obviously, they allow you to turn it into a guaranteed lifetime income. That's what a pension is. However, a lot of the time, I would say probably about 90% of the time, if we shop that pension amount. Now, what I mean by that is, the pension company is either going to let you just take the monthly payments, and you can set it up however you want with 100% survivorship for your spouse, or 50%, or none, or whatever. There's a lot of different options, but they will give you that number. That's a monthly payment they'll pay you as long as you're living, and then based on survivorship, your spouse. Or most pensions will also give you a lump sum. Now, in some cases, when we take that lump sum and we shop it, what they got from their original company is still the most, and I suggest that they stay where they are. But in most cases, I'd say between 80 and 90% of the time, what we can find from other A-rated companies in the market actually will pay them more on a monthly basis than they would get from the original pension company, and that's what happened with them. So we basically took that lump sum from the pension that he already had, because they were going to make significantly more in the plan that we actually found from them, from one of those companies that have been around almost 100 years and are an A-rated company. So they're getting out of the pension, number one, so they don't have to worry about anything happening with pensions, which we keep hearing about that. And they're with a top-rated life insurance company that's been around basically forever, not going anywhere. And they were making more than $1,000 more a month on that plan. So that's what we did for the pension. For the rest of his money, he wanted to make sure that he had growth and never have to worry about losses. So we moved that money out of the 401k plan and put that money into a growth plan that he can reallocate every year between a fixed account and a market indexed account. So he can choose how he wants his money to grow every single year. They were incredibly relieved when they left. They're making more. They don't have to worry about anything ever happening to the pension at the company. So with a top-rated life insurance company, it's going to pay both of them, and it's got 100% survivorship. So they were making $1,000 a month more, plus it had 100% survivorship. So they had that going for them. That obviously made them thrilled, over the moon with that, and their Social Security. They were going to be great. And then also moving that 401k money so he wasn't having to pay any fees, never any chances of losses, and still good growth that he could choose every single day. They left super happy and content, and have actually already referred a few people to me. Now, that's what we did for them. How can this affect you? How can this work for you? What can you do with this information? Well, if you have a pension and it's coming up and you're trying to decide what you want to do, there are some options for you. You need to look at all of the options that they give you. They're going to give you the different options for 100% survivorship, which means if you're making $1,000 a month, when you pass, your spouse is still going to make $1,000 a month. 50% survivorship, your spouse would make $500. 0, they wouldn't make any. So you need to look at all of those options. But what you really need to do is get with your certified financial fiduciary and have them shop that lump sum amount. So whatever the monthly amount is, get that number, but then have someone shop that can look for everything like we can. Have someone shop for you what that lump sum amount would be able to purchase, and then compare it to what you got from the original company. And then based on that comparison, also based on whether the person would rather be in a pension plan that, there has been some challenges with pension plans, or they'd rather be with a top-rated life insurance company. And also some of these life insurance company plans that I do, some of them also have that income doubler if you get in a long-term care situation. So there's a lot of things to look at, but just make sure that you are looking at what's best for you. And then as far as the growth that they did, y'all have heard me talk about this over and over. anything that you want to have grow, get it into a plan where you know you don't have to worry about losses. And that's for any money that you absolutely must have in retirement. I talk some about play money, and let's say you've got $1 million and you feel like, well, I've got to have 500,000 to make sure I make it through retirement. Well, then that 500 is what needs to be in a plan that you can't lose any from. If you don't need the other 500 and you can play with it, great, go for it. But you need to make sure you've protected what you have to protect. And that's what we do. That's what Safe Money Retirement does, is we look at the entire picture, look whether you need to get some information on an income plan or a growth plan or some of both, and long-term care and life or legacy or whatever is involved. We put it all together and make sure that the plan is going to be the right plan for you to make sure you can enjoy your retirement. Well, I'm about out of time, and I would like to thank you for listening to the Safe Money Retirement Show. If you're serious about your financial future, give me a call, and together we'll get your retirement savings on the fast track to accumulate while reducing exposure to market loss. Thanks for listening, and until next time at the same time, I'm Tim Wood reminding you to stay safe so you can step into a secure future.
You've been listening to the Safe Money Retirement Show with your host, Tim Wood. Find out how to contractually guarantee that your income in retirement is guaranteed lifetime income and not if-come. Avoid any future market losses, plan for the potential of long-term care, and make wise tax planning choices so you can have the retirement that you deserve. Call us now for your free copy of Tim's best-selling book, Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. Call 833-413-SAFE. That's 833-413-7233. Or log on to our site at safemoneyretirement.com for more information or to request your free book. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you online at safemoneyretirement.com. The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step toward protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified licensed insurance professional. It's important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.